fridge, yeah, 6 years ago, and the already the compressor has gone out. But some of you guys, right away I had to go out and buy another one because I was in the middle of remodeling the bathroom, and the repair guy came over and he says he wanted $1,200 to change the compressor, and I just didn't really have time to deal with it. So there's nothing, other than that. I mean, it's like brand new. We kept it always really clean, brand new. But I'm going to show you guys. So it's actually going to get turned in. I had to pay $15 to get rid of it. What the hell? And because I just don't have time to deal with it. So it's the one with the 2 ice makers, and it has this thing called Twin Cool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain to you after we'd already bought the new one. I figured out how to diagnose it, and after the repairman told me that the compressor was bad, I definitely agree with him. The compressor is bad, but it's not like some of them you hear where the compressor's rattling or making noise. It doesn't do that. It just doesn't pump enough Freon. So I'm going to explain to you guys. I'm an ASC. I was an ASC certified master auto technician, and so I passed the air conditioning test for cars. Air conditioning and cooling are very similar in a lot of ways. So I'm going to explain to you guys what I know. Now, I'm not an expert with appliances, but what I know about this appliance and how to diagnose it and fix it the best way you can. It is very, very, very different than the traditional refrigerator. So I'm going to explain to you guys how a regular refrigerator works really quick, and then I'm going to explain to you how this fridge works different. And I really wouldn't recommend buying one because it's too complicated, they overcomplicated something they made very simple in the beginning. Now let me show you the back side of the thing so that we can kind of see what's going on. So back here in the back, all refrigerators have a compressor, which when you plug it in the wall, the compressor should be running. This has a condenser fan. That should also be running. Some of the older ones don't even have a condenser fan. The condenser was exposed in the back and they didn't need it. But anything that has a condenser fan, this motor should be running, and that should be running all the time when it's plugged in, except for some of the Energy Star models. When it's really, really cool inside, it'll automatically shut off, or the compressor speed will slow down, which has that. But typically they have that, and then inside the refrigerator, the freezer behind the back, there's a panel back there on all refrigerators that there's a fan inside and the evaporator. Okay, on this refrigerator, it's not like a traditional one that has 2 evaporators, so I'm going to tell you what that is in a minute. There's an evaporator behind there, and usually what happens on most refrigerators is in the freezer, the typical problem is it ices over. And all the cooling is typically done on most refrigerators from the freezer, and then it's ventilated into the rest of the refrigerator. So it starts in the freezer, and then it ventilates into the rest of the refrigerator, and the freezer is the thing that does all the cooling, and that little fan in there keeps the thing from icing over and pushes the air up into the other part of the fridge. And usually when you have the little dial, all that dial does that you normally have, I'm going to shut this door so we don't have to listen to that noise, it has this little dial inside that just changes the amount of air that's coming from the freezer to the fridge. That's how typically a normal fridge works. So you should have the fan in the back of the fridge should be running all the time. The fan in the front should be running all the time. And usually the problem with those older fridges is the little fan inside you'd leave the door ajar, or you'd have your seal on your door would go bad, and air would leak inside, and then that would always ice over because it accumulates the the moisture that's in the air from the outside, because the cooling system actually dries the air out. So, and that actually would accumulate onto the evaporator and then ice over, and then the fridge wouldn't work. So your freezer might be still working, but your fridge doesn't work. This is not what's happening with this fridge. Okay, this fridge, the refrigerator is cold. But the freezer is not. So the fridge is at 38, freezer's at 57. Okay, so this is what I believe, how I believe this is designed, and why that it's not working properly. This fridge has two evaporators. You have one in the top part of the fridge, in the refrigerator section, and the same thing down in the freezer section. And how that it operates the ice makers is there's a squirrel cage fan in the freezer that blows cold air up a chamber into the upper ice maker. That's how it cools the ice, makes the ice up here, and whatever goes past here helps cool the refrigerator. Those ice makers are not working, and there's an ice maker in the bottom, and all it does is just fill up with water every so often, whatever, every hour, and then flip over, and then the ice comes out. That's all there is to an ice maker. It just fills up with water. It's already cold, turns to ice, turns over, ice falls out. Very simple. It's a very simple piece to make. So let me explain to you guys how that this refrigerator is complicated and why that it has problems, and what's happening with ours. This refrigerator has a multi-speed compressor, and that's for the Energy Star. And I'm not certain what's wrong inside the compressor, but it's not pumping enough Freon, because what's happening is it's pumping enough Freon to run this evaporator, but not enough to run the one on the bottom. And from looking at it, this one has a really small orifice tube inside of it. The orifice tube is what makes the air cool. So if it's got enough pressure to run this one, but not enough pressure for the larger orifice tube in the bottom to have enough low pressure on that side. It's actually low pressure that it's dealing with, but it does have enough just to barely run the top. So the top has a little bit of ice down on the top of the thing, and on this refrigerator, because it's so complicated, what it has is the fans don't always run in here. They only run when it reaches a certain temperature, from what I understand from just looking at how it operates. By having it all, I had this all apart and looked at it. And what happens is when it reaches a certain temperature, it senses to the computer. The computer decides whether the fan's going to turn on, and all of the fans don't work right now. It could be that there's also a problem with the computer board itself, which is usually the relay that's on it. You can change the relays on them, and the boards are only about $100. So even if you were savvy and you wanted to fix it yourself, you can just buy a new board and put it in, and, for $100, and it takes 4 screws and a bunch of plugs, and it's very easy to put in. So what's happening here is there's not enough Freon getting pumped into to run both of because they run off one compressor, and the bottom is actually the other thing I was going to explain. So what it does is normally it gets everything gets iced over, or gets to the point where now it's going to ice over. The fans will start to run, and when it overcools, what it does is there's heaters around each one of the evaporators that the computer decides when to turn on, to make sure that the fridge is at a certain temperature and the freezer's at a certain temperature exactly, versus just air being restricted and you don't get as much airflow. So operation wise, it might be more effective as far as cooling, but it's more complicated, so there's more problems with it. So everything has to kind of go through that little computer in the back. It's really, it's underneath this panel right here. If you're working on it, it's under this panel. And it's actually just a bunch of plugs. You can just unplug it and plug a new one in, of course, with the power off, unplugged from the wall, and be able to do that no problem. So if you're, I don't know how much the compressor is for this one. Typically, I've been looking on eBay, and most of the Samsung compressors are about $160. So if you wanted to, you could change this. If you have a bad compressor on yours, there's basically, if you know anything about soldering, there's two soldered lines on. Of course, they're filled with Freon, so you're going to have to evacuate the Freon. You have a little clamp on tool that clamps on here, and then you can actually put a fitting on there and evacuate the system with that. If you're savvy, like an automotive Freon system, and it uses R134, which is just like cars, so you can buy that at Riley Auto Parts or someplace like that and actually replace this thing. So there's two, I think there's three Freon lines, or two Freon lines. Let me see, there's two Freon lines, it should be, and then there's a plug on this side, and then 4 bolts. I mean, I don't know why the guy was going to charge me $1,200 to replace that. To me, it's like, what? You know, that takes like, that'll probably take me a good maybe 2 hours, and I'm not a fridge guy, you know, maybe 2 hours to do. So, but what's happening is you can kind of hear, and to test this, there's another guy named Bill something, his last, I don't know what his last name is. He's a really good eBay, or not eBay, YouTube guy for fridges, and I tested the wire, and it's drawing 1.6 amps, which 1.1 is what it should be drawing, and I tested it was drawing 1.6, so it's marginally bad. But it's so hard to tell because I don't know if this is different because it's got multi-speeds. He said something about that. But it's just not putting out enough Freon to run the whole system. So if you have a Samsung unit like this one, the Twin Cool, and your fridge is working good and your freezer's not, you know, I'm not going to say that it's the compressor. Check first, ice. See, take off those covers, see if those things are completely iced over. If they're only iced over a little bit, then that's normal. They should have a little bit of ice at the top, and you know, where the Freon line comes in. But they shouldn't be completely iced over. Mine had a little bit of ice on the top one, and the bottom one had no ice. So it tells me that there's not enough Freon being pumped to that unit. And that's what he knew right away. He opened the freezer first. Didn't even need to open the fridge because he was like, nope, if it's not coming down here, then there's not enough pressure in the, not enough pressure in the system. Now, if you're, and the motor sounds just a little bit different than it used to. It sounds kind of a little bit it's kind of wavy sounding now. So it kind of goes up and down, where it used to be more consistent. You should also notice when you turn off the energy saver, you should notice that the motor starts to speed up. If you hear the motor start to speed up, then you know that's normal operation. But mine's speeding up, and it still doesn't have enough pressure to have the receiver in the bottom, to have the what's it called, evaporator in the bottom freezer portion operate. So the fans are not kicking on either, but I think that's part of the way that it's designed in this model. When typically, remember, I said that the fans should be running on every refrigerator, normal refrigerators in the freezer. When they have a freezer cooling system, and that's ventilated into the rest of the fridge. There's 2 fans in this one on the freezer too. There's one squirrel cage to run the ice maker, and one to relieve the ice from it, and also that one ventilates to the top as well. It has a ventilation system for that. So anyway, it's very complicated. It's something that if you want to avoid this, look for, if you really are looking to buy one of these and you want to avoid having this problem, stay away from one that has dual evaporators. So the way you can tell is usually it says twin cooling, or I just stay away from Samsung altogether. I let them make cell phones and whatever else stuff they make, you know, TVs, you know. I wouldn't buy any appliance that they make, not even a washer and dryer, none of that stuff, because I don't think they know what they're doing. I mean, they're overcomplicating something that should be very simple. So what I would do is look and see if it doesn't have the cooling system. Look inside, open up the freezer and look inside. You'll see something behind all the drawers and everything else that has, you know, an access panel where you can see how to where they work on it, you know, to work on it, and see if it has that same access panel in the fridge. If it only has it in the freezer, you're good. It's going to be the more simple system of ventilation from the freezer to the fridge, which has a lot less problems and a lot less moving parts than this one does, and a lot more things that can go wrong. I don't even know what the new one we got is. I didn't even get, because I did this diagnosis after we had already purchased something, so I was just like, you know, I could just put a compressor in this thing, and maybe, I'm not sure about the fans not running inside, so that I'm not totally sure about, but I think it does have they're up in here on the refrigerator, and the freezer has a cooling sensor, you know, for the temperature sensor. In the top, there's 2 plugs, one for the fan, and the fan is also multi-speed because it has 3 wires to it instead of 2. So it tells me that, you know, it has 2 different speeds probably. So it's trying to figure this out is, you know, it's much easier just to change parts, you know, at that point, you know, trying to figure out, well, you can, you know, test this, test that. You can, if you know which wires to test on the, you know, fan motors, and you know, you're not afraid of putting 110 to the thing, you know, it's, you know, then, you know, you might want to think about that twice before you do it, because it's not a lot of voltage to mess around with. But the other thing is, I'll tell you how you take this panel off. Behind here, there's 1 screw behind this little access panel, and then there's, well, let's see, there's, oh, behind these drawers, there's 2 screws, and then there's 1 somewhere in the middle. So I think there's 4 screws to take that off, and then it just, you have to pull it a little bit, and it snaps out of place. Kind of snaps in there, and then it screws into place. That's how it works. Same thing in the freezer, there's 2 screws, and you have to take the ice maker loose. Take the ice maker and let it kind of hang down, and then you take out the 2 screws and pull out that whole panel. Then you can see everything that I'm talking about. It'll make a lot more sense. I'm not going to take it all apart for you. I've already had it all apart. This thing's going, they're coming to pick it up in a little while, and it's going to end up, I don't know. Some repair guy, backyard guy, is going to fix it. That's if that compressor isn't that expensive. Like I said, I saw them on eBay for about $160 for Samsung. I didn't check the part number to see if it matched up to this one. So, but if they were 160 bucks, I would say, if you have a bad compressor, and you know anything about Freon and how to deal with it, you have to evacuate the system, take it down to a vacuum. You can buy one of those vacuum pumps from Harbor Freight Tools that you hook up to the air compressor. It'll suck it down just fine. I've used those things in cars, and you can do it that way if you want, and you won't have any, it'll work. And then you put R134, but you get an hour parts, you can get any parts store or whatever, wherever you're at, and have it done. So it's kind of a bummer. I have extra filters for the water right now, you know, but you know, we really like this fridge, and it's really beautiful looking, but Samsung and fridges are just not a good combination. I would not buy one do not buy. And look at, you know, fridge manufacturer. You know, we have LG washer. I had no problems with those. Maybe an LG if you want something that looks like this. We're actually getting a KitchenAid because we have this. It looks like similar to this. The front of it does. It's kind of boxy looking. And we bought this a little while back. It works really, really well. This is a Gen Air. I had to cut the granite out because they actually had a stovetop in here, and then they put in a wall oven below it. What idiots would do that, you know? I mean, you got a place for a range, and you put it in a stovetop and a wall oven, which is like twice as much money as buying a range. That was idiotic. When somebody remodeled this kitchen before we bought the house, and we bought this. We just bought these 6 months ago, new, and then a matching, whatever that is, you know what it is, contractor. So, but because we had black in the house before, and we had this really nice stainless steel fridge, so, and now the fridge goes out. So anyway, you guys give it a shot. If you want to try and figure it out, put some questions in below. I'd be happy to try to, and I'll try and find that guy, the appliance guy. He answers a lot of questions. He's really good, and his name is Bill. I don't remember his last name right now, but because I'm just doing this verbatim. I don't do edited videos. I just do random uploads of cool stuff, and this is kind of cool to know about. See you guys later.